Today we're going to be talking about ocular regeneration and tissue engineering. And so this afternoon I'll be interviewing 3 of our young researchers. They've just recently started with us, and they're all working on specific areas that we hope in the short term will start to really lend hope and promise to those who are suffering from vision loss for any reason. People wonder what tissue engineering and ocular regeneration really is. Sometimes an easy way to describe it is if you think about a starfish, it has the ability, if one of its 5 limbs is cut off, it totally regrows that. So we're looking at that. Are we able to develop the tools and the capabilities to regenerate tissue in the human body? Are there ways that we can modify healing so that we end up with a really good result again at the end instead of just scar tissue that is not really functional? So these guys are helping to lead the way in some of this work on ocular regeneration, and I'm excited that we have the opportunity to talk to them. I have Dr. Peter Crapo with me today, and he's going to talk to you about some of the work that he's doing to regenerate the optic nerve. But before you do that, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So my background is in tissue engineering, but cardiovascular tissue engineering is what I've worked in previously. And so I'm interested in nervous tissue regeneration because that seems to be a significant challenge. There's been success in tissue engineering in other areas, and nerve seems to be the one that's the most challenging.
So you want to go after the most difficult
yeah.
What the scientists talk about for tissue regeneration, and that's working on the nerves.
Right. But probably still possible and still a good chance of success in a lot of different areas of nerve tissue engineering.
Well, I know that people who have spinal cord injuries are very interested in nerve regeneration, but I know that people who have eye issues are also concerned about that optic nerve, so that's great that you're working on that. What made you want to be part of this program since you've been doing cardiovascular work before?
The particular work that Dr. Badulak is doing, Dr. Stephen F. Badulak is doing, is taking tissue and removing the cells from it and then putting that back into the body. And that has produced some unique results, some very successful results compared to some of the other approaches that have been tried. And so with that background, it seems like the chance for success in optic nerve and in ocular tissue engineering and tissue engineering in general is significantly improved when you try something that's already worked and try it in a different system.
Can you give us an example of a particular type of patient that would benefit from the work you're doing?
Sure. Anyone who had had any sort of traumatic injury to their optic nerve, where the nerve was damaged, but the eye and all of the basic parts are still there, and repair is all that's needed, that would be sort of the first front of patients that would see a benefit from this.
And how would you describe, in a way that a non-scientist could really understand, what you're trying to do? And I notice you have some show and tell with you now.
Absolutely. So this here is a part of a brain that the cells have been removed from it. And then you can take this and form it into different sorts of materials, such as perhaps a gel or a sheet, something like that. And with that form, then implant that and encourage the tissues to regenerate.
So it's almost like that would be the framework of a house, for example.
Right.
Before the other building materials are put on it, and you're trying to use that framework, almost perhaps also described as like our skeleton, to be able to build onto.
Right. We call it a scaffolding, just like a scaffolding on a building sort of helps the building to be put together, or if you're refacing it, to be put back together.
Okay. Great. How long do you think it will take to do some of the steps in this? I know that people would love it to be, in 24 hours or 2 weeks, but
Right.
what's reasonable for you to be able to show success?
So one of the important things to do first is to make sure, before we try the technology in patients, to make sure that we do diligent preclinical studies to make sure that the technology works, and you want two things. You want, first is safety, and then you want efficacy of the treatment. So in other words, you want it to be safe first, make sure it's safe, and then make sure it's effective.
Well, I think that's an important concept for people to understand, because even though they're impatient for solutions, they wouldn't be happy if we gave them something that wasn't safe for them. So I think that safety and efficacy they're very important concepts. Well, I look forward to talking with you again and hearing about your progress, so we'll know when we might start to see the actual clinical trials.
Thank you.
Thank you.